Even the most shamefully delusional individual on the planet today, even the most brainwashed, lobotomized, zombified, hollowed-out, essence-sapped individual today should recognize how rapidly things are worsening, how rapidly things are becoming increasingly Orwellian, to the point where in several Western industrialized countries today, it is becoming increasingly difficult to distinguish between the societies depicted in Orwell's 1984 and Aldous Huxley's Brave New World and their society that they currently live in, that we are currently have the misfortune of living in today. The latest example of this slide towards the absolute depths of hell, this descent into the abyss, the likes of which we've perhaps never seen, is a headline on Infowars.com: legions of biometric face scanning cameras to be installed at Heathrow airports within weeks. Yeah, biometric face scanners. You know, I saw the movie Inception not Inception. I'm confusing it with a very recently released movie that I did not see. That was relatively popular. I fairly recently saw a dystopian film that was released several years ago, probably early 21st century, but I recently saw it, and it depicted these ubiquitous eye scanners and face recognition software, akin to what you see with the CCTV cameras in the UK today in terms of their ubiquitous and pervasive nature, but this was actually facial recognition and biometric scanning, eye scanning. And so now they're introducing these at Heathrow Airport in London. I mean, you cannot make this up. It is as if the elites of various countries gather in their libraries that are their shelves are likely stacked full. I'm just alleging this, but it's as if the elites in various nations have libraries of all the dystopian, hellish, the dystopian novels ever written that depict the most hellish societies conceivable, and they either pick and choose from various different novels, or they attempt to implement everything they possibly can that's contained within all of them. And I bet they have a special bookshelf for 1984 by George Orwell and Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. George Orwell, of course, predicting and warning against the awful hell that society would become in not too many decades. And of course, Aldous Huxley being the elite who was essentially stating what the elites were planning, being an elite himself that was well aware of what the elites would attempt to do, that is, control every facet of society, control every individual to the whatever extent they possibly can, to restrict every facet of one's human essence, to stifle and diminish what a human being is, to render the notion, to render the definition of human, the very essence of what it is to be a human, to render it meaningless, to redefine what it is to be human. It makes me fucking sick. I mean, here it is, biometric face scanners at the airport in Heathrow in London. I mean, we're here. Orwell, a complete Orwellian society, indistinguishable from 1984, is mere decades away. Maybe less in the UK. I mean, with their pre-crimes arrest, and now these prior to the royal wedding to stifle dissent, and now these biometric scanners. And, in the U.S. they have they're molesting people at airports, and the surveillance is increasing as well. I mean, folks, it's time to contend with reality. It's time to stop denying the fact that we're heading towards the depths of hell. And it's time to start doing something about it. Do what you feel is best. Do what you feel will be most effective. I'm not going to tell you what to do. Gosh, I could be fucking arrested for making this YouTube video and advocating that people talk to their neighbors about 9/11 truth. I mean, the way things are going, they're introducing a predictive policing program in the U.S., I believe in California, that is, in essence, it's one step closer towards full institutional implementation of pre-crime arrests in the U.S. They're going to attempt to predict where crimes are most likely to occur and direct their police forces accordingly. That's not full-out pre-crime, like they genuinely did arrest people for pre-crime in the UK that didn't, Charlie Beach was said that he might meet at a certain location with a few other people, join me if you want to, and on a YouTube video, and they arrested him for that. So, but in this new predictive policing in San Francisco in the United States is where I live. I don't live in San Francisco, but I live in the United States. Is a lesser form of that, but it's a new policing tactic that an entire police force is openly saying they're going to implement. So do what you feel is best to get the word out or resist in some capacity. I feel like anything we do nowadays is grossly insufficient due to the sheer exponentially increasing seemingly rate at which these new horrific Orwellian policy decisions are introduced and implemented. I mean, it's a new fucking thing every day in a modern society. It makes you want to just you go insane. Because you just feel, I feel, virtually it's sometimes quite hopeless in the face of these things. I mean, if the government has the nerve to molest you at airports, if you got police murdering minorities with impunity, if you got 5 illegal wars / active violent engagements by the U.S. military, we have, and now the U.S. is involved in Pakistan, Afghanistan, Libya, Yemen, and Iraq. I mean, that's the never-ending war of Oceania versus whatever the other country was, as depicted in Orwell's 1984 as well. I mean, when are people going to see the fucking parallels? They got telescreens in 480 government buildings, I believe, that tell you to be afraid of your neighbor, to be afraid of the common citizenry. You gotta fucking laugh at this shit. The fact that they're telling us to be afraid, the government is telling us to be afraid of one another, like I'm supposed to be more afraid rationally of my next door neighbor, of the fucking person that's walking down the street, than I am of the government that's implementing all these twisted Orwellian policies. I mean, who are you gonna fear? The fucking government who's murdering kids in Iraq and Afghanistan? The fucking police who murder people with impunity and immunity? The fucking, Homeland Security who molest you at the airport? The fucking government of the United Kingdom who's introducing biometric face scanners? Are you gonna fucking fear them, or are you gonna fucking fear the common citizen? I think the former. I think it's more warranted to fear and to resist and to be opposed to the government as opposed to your common citizen. People are genuinely good at heart. Most people don't commit atrocity. No one conspires to enslave the entire populace, to render us docile sheep, to render us completely inhuman, to take our very birthright to be a member of a healthy community and absolutely fucking eviscerate it. I mean, no one I know does that. No one I know murders millions of Iraqi children, except the fucking government. This should be a time of cohesion to stop the paranoia that tells, to stop being paranoid of one another, to stop distrusting one another, to stop hating one another, to start valuing one another, to start forming communities with one another and enhancing our communities with one another. Get rid of the societal atomization. Get rid of the societal degradation that makes us all feel alone and isolated. Get rid of that fucking shit and direct your energy towards the people that are fucking ruining everything for all of us, that are fucking taking our very souls and fucking smashing them to pieces. I mean, they tell you not to be angry. They tell you to, they have these entire their entire professions and institutions that exist for the sole function of making, or for in large part to make you feel to make you feel content with your suffering, to make you feel content with the fact that things are turning so fucking hellish that they have psychologists that tell you that you need to just perceive things differently, that you need to take this fucking prescription pill, that you need to work through your problems. Look, it's society is the fucking problem. If you're not enraged right now, you have a fucking problem. If you're fucking content, if you're fucking popping Valium, if you're fucking working through your problems with a fucking therapist, you have a fucking problem. I mean, I'm not condemning anyone who sees a therapist, because, you know, there's certain issues that can be beneficial with, etc. But I'm saying that many of these institutions, whether it be the cops or the psychologists or the government, they exist to constrict and confine you. They exist to control you. They exist to control your natural emotions, your natural reactions to injustice. They exist to inhibit your ability to be a valued member of a functioning community. It's all about moderation, management, and control. The police and the military and the government, they coerce you actively and brutally, and they make you feel afraid, and they threaten you with prison. But then you have the psychologists who make you feel content with the hell that you're in. They urge you to alter your perception so that you can feel content with the fact that the government's molesting kids. I mean, I'm just using that as one example. But they seek to moderate and manage your emotions and control you and prevent you from lashing out against injustice. And you shouldn't fucking tolerate it. If someone tells you you're a fucking conspiracy theorist for being upset at the fact that legions of biometric face scanners are being introduced at the Heathrow Airport in London, the fact that their cops are murdering innocent people with impunity, they just murdered another fucking person, today, then, you tell them to go fuck themselves. You tell them, or get mad at the government instead, but you tell them, I am not crazy, I am not a conspiracy theorist, I am recognizing patterns that you too should recognize. I have not surrendered my humanity. I have not become a docile sheep. I have not become someone who reads about injustice and doesn't react. I have not become someone who reads about injustice and says, oh, that's normal. Look, it's not normal that 1 out of every 4 women get raped. It's not normal that kids are being murdered in Iraq and Libya and Pakistan and Afghanistan and all over the fucking world. It's not normal that they're introducing biometric face scanners. It's not normal that they're molesting kids at the airport. It is not normal. It is not normal that they surveil you everywhere you go in the United Kingdom. It is not normal. Don't normalize injustice, folks. Rage against it in any way you can. Not just on YouTube. Be active in your local communities. Do what you feel is best. Use your talents to the extent that you can, to whatever extent you can. Use your talents to the advantage of resisting this insanity, even if it's hopeless, folks. Do something, because you know what? I want to be a human as long as I can. Do you want to be a human as long as you can? I want to be the last man standing when they've sucked everyone's souls out. I want to be the one who has his soul still. I've lived my life somewhat isolated from the vast majority of people. So, if it takes further isolation to stay with my principles, then goddamn it, I'm going to stick to my fucking principles. I'm going to stick to my fucking principles rather than succumb to these insane control freak tyrants. Wow. How is that for a rant, folks? Perhaps my angriest. Things are just getting so insane every day. And they, people criticize Alex Jones, and rightfully so, because he does sometimes exaggerate, and he's not the most rational, best critical thinker by any means. He's not a very good critical thinker at all. But, when people say, I don't listen to Alex Jones, he's paranoid, that makes me fundamentally question, do you open your eyes and see what's going on around you? How can you be paranoid in modern society? We're going towards the most horrific Orwellian nightmare that perhaps the world has ever seen. And you're trying to tell me that I'm paranoid? That Alex Jones is paranoid? Sure, he's not the best critical thinker, but how can you possibly say something or predict something, no matter how horrific, that's that far off from reality? I mean, given the downward spiral we're going under, and given the how horrific things are, it seems very difficult for me to be paranoid nowadays. I could, I could make up the most horrific, nightmare fantasy, and it could come true tomorrow, because they're biometrically face scanning you at the airport. They're killing with impunity. Folks, wake up. Read 1984. Do something in your local community. I beg of you, before it's too late. Maybe it's already too late, but at least be a human while you still can.